Substitute, Episode 7. The departure time was delayed by 2 hours because of some technical delays. On board, Austin sat close to a man whose perfume harassed his olfactory lobe. The woman to his right had a baby who would not stop crying, especially at the slightest alteration in cabin pressure. So Austin was relieved when he finally walked through the automatic doors of the arrival hall into the warmth of the afternoon. 2 men crowded his face. "Taxi, sir!" Austin hurried past them. He needed a taxi all right, but not the type they offered. He settled for a decent-looking one from the registered car park. The driver was middle-aged with a beard that lacked grooming practice. Circling out of the car park, the driver started to make small talk. "Welcome to Lagos," he said. Austin spotted his wrinkled smile through the rearview mirror, but he was in no mood for a conversation. "Thank you," he replied. The vehicle rattled over a few potholes and speed breakers. "I hope you had a nice flight." "Yes, thank you." "First time in Lagos?" "No." There was a brief silence. "There have been a few more suicide bombings in the northeast. It was in the news this morning that several people were killed in an explosion." Austin nodded, but the man did not stop. "The government is working hard to fight drug crimes because they believe it funds terrorism. Are you aware that illegal drug trade is estimated to turn over about..." "Turn up the air conditioning, please," Austin cut in as the driver obliged. The blast of air helped amplify the mild scent of jasmine air freshener. Austin rolled his neck and shoulders to relieve some stiffness, and just when he was drifting into a light sleep, the driver spoke up again. "Which radio station do you prefer?" he asked, but Austin dismissed him with the wave of her hand. Apart from his weary bones, he was unusually cranky. Perhaps it was because of the delayed flight or the abrupt way his trip had ended. Something unsettled him. He recalled Imo's barrage of questions, originating from a need to understand why he had to leave. A pained expression, which in time gave rise to tears, was heart-rending, yet he had to go on with his decision. His mind drifted to Lara. How was she holding up? He hoped to spend more meaningful time with her, but that would not be possible anymore. Austin walked into Chinedu's house with mixed feelings. Ironic as it was, he came crawling back to a life he had promised to leave behind. Austin needed money, and also to prove to his brother that he could succeed in life. He found Chinedu in his study, talking into his phone, which was on speaker mode. "Is there a challenge with the Malaysian order?" a poised female voice inquired. Chinedu could not think of a better answer as Austin strolled in. "Hello, are you there?" she asked, and a thin smile appeared at the corner of Chinedu's lips. "We had a little delay, but it looks like it's been sorted." "Good. Please keep me posted. This order is behind by 2 weeks and the client is not pleased." As the conversation progressed, Austin figured she was one of Tiger's assistants. "Sure, we will get to it," Chinedu replied. "I'll give Tiger your message," she said, and the line went off. Chinedu tossed his phone aside and asked, "What are you doing here?" He did not particularly look surprised or relieved that Austin had shown up. "I'm back," Austin announced as he settled into a chair opposite his friend. Chinedu's mocking grin gave rise to a sardonic remark. "Your family eventually threw you out, didn't they?" he asked. Chinedu was always right. The advice he gave after Austin's first successful delivery of illegal drugs was priceless. Much to Austin's surprise, Chinedu encouraged him to take a direct entry route into a university. Austin already had a diploma and was making a few thousands every other week from selling hard drugs, yet Chinedu insisted, so they both signed up to get a university education. Get a life outside dealing. Chinedu advised, if you have nothing else in your life like a school, a job or kids and get caught, you're likely to spend more time in jail. Based on this, they enrolled in school but were rarely available. a whiz kid named Bayo did most of their schoolwork for them and got paid for it. Chinedu was also right about reuniting with his family. It was a spineless idea to embark on a so-called family reunion with a woman who may have willingly given him up at birth and the twin brother who did not care about him. But Austin was not ready for any lengthy conversation. He surveyed the room. His face was hard as steel. "Where's the stuff?" Chinedu rose. "Going over to the gym, join me," he said. Chinedu's home gym was located on the bottom floor of his 2-story mansion. The well-lit space had a modern touch and amenities to accommodate at least 10 people at a time. Various equipment focused on specific movements, including 2 treadmills, various sizes of weight plates, 3 exercise bikes, a punching bag which Chinedu used for stress busting, and a snooker board. The rear doors of the gym opened into a pool and an open-air jacuzzi where Chinedu relaxed most evenings. By the time Austin entered the gym, Chinedu was far into his workout. His feet thumped the treadmill, t-shirt soaked in sweat. His calculated movements synchronized with the background music which seemed to emanate from the walls. Austin hopped on the second treadmill. A while had passed since he last visited the gym, probably because he had an enviable stature and was not as obsessed about maintaining an athletic body like Chinedu was. Austin should have declined Chinedu's suggestion to increase the treadmill incline because as soon as Austin did, his motion became labored. With heavy breathing, he struggled with the steep surface until he banged his knee on the equipment. Ouch! Austin grabbed his leg. His fatigued muscles had been pushed to its breaking point, and now this. "You need to decide on what you want," Chinedu said as he got off his treadmill and grabbed a bottle of water from a fridge. "Huh?" Austin clutched his knee. "Life is about pressing forward until you achieve your dreams," Chinedu spat. "My muscles are sore," Austin cried. "This is not about you and that damn machine. It's about you and the business. Don't you get it?" Chinedu's eyes took on a steely glint. "I have guys who joined this business after you and they now distribute large volumes. You need to be hungry enough to risk your life because there's no room for quitters. It's either you are in or out," Chinedu backed. "Guy, you know that Are you in or out?" "I'm in." "Good." Chinedu gulped his water and mopped some droplets of sweat around his neck. "Gather your stuff. You are leaving tomorrow," he said as he approached the door. "Tomorrow?" Austin froze. Austin went over the Malaysian plan over 100 times in his head. He was to travel by land across 3 African countries. If anything went wrong at those locations, he would identify himself as a Nigerian. But as soon as he crossed the Malaysian border, he would destroy everything that identified him as Austin and adopt a new identity that had been fabricated for him. A passport with a different name and corresponding documents were already available, and it carried the identity of a newly enrolled student in a Malaysian state university, ready to study economics on a full-time basis. It was necessary to tidy up some things before embarking on the journey, so he packed a few clothes and planned to spend some quality time to rest. But Bayo had glided into his apartment 30 minutes earlier, begging like a dog at a fair. "The police seized my parcel and I can't go back to Chinedu because he'll think I'm lying." "What I have is for my trip and it's already packed," Austin said. "I understand, but do you have anywhere?" Bayo asked. Austin shook his head. "You know I just got back," he said. Bayo's hands were fluttering like they had lost track of what they should be doing. He started to scratch his back. His hand moved beneath his arm, digging through his shorts like he had an infection. The memories Austin had of the young chap were those of a high flyer who took his studies seriously, but that afternoon, Bayo was a shadow of himself. Long unkempt nails, sunken eyes, bushy beard, untidy hair and his teeth. There was something about those teeth. Are you okay? Austin was truly concerned. Yes. Bayo released an unexpected chuckle. I'm just going through some stuff, he said. I hope you are not getting high on... No, never. Bayo leaped up before Austin could utter another word. I'll see you later, he said. He was still scratching his arm when he left Austin's apartment. Can I have 10 bottles of Medilin? There were 2 pharmacists behind the counter when Bayo arrived. The younger pharmacist, who looked in her mid-20s, took his order and set out to fetch the medicine. But when she whispered a few words to her older colleague, the lady grimaced and approached. 10 bottles? She asked, and Bayo cocked his head. If she was here to give him an idea of the total cost, he wasn't interested because he had more than enough to pay for it. The younger pharmacist joined them. I'm sorry, but we only have 4 bottles left. Can I get you to another brand? Children? Cough syrup, right? Bayo's eyes were darting, and he knew it would only be a while before the tremors set in. Yet, the older pharmacist continued to study him like a specimen. I'm sorry, but is there any reason you need to buy 10 bottles of cough syrup at once? His older pharmacist asked. My sister is traveling abroad. She likes to go with a lot of medication. Bayo hoped his explanation was sufficient, but the lady wouldn't let go. How many children does your sister have? 5. Are they asthmatic? I don't know. Bayo shrugged and added, I didn't ask. Her eyes examined Bayo before glancing over at her younger colleague, who was on standby to receive her orders. For control, we can only sell 5 bottles at a time, she said. And Bayo's shoulders dropped. He could feel his chest tightening. Okay, 4 bottles of Medilin and a bottle of the other one. He paid for the medication and dashed out before the nosy pharmacist changed her mind. Bayo knew where to find Imade. That evening, he strolled in through the double doors from the rear of the classroom. Exams were approaching, and the pressure to do well continued to mount. As soon as he spotted her, he slid a pack of food and drink along the desk and settled down beside her. Their chemistry was unmistakable even to their peers. Everyone understood that wherever Bayo was, Imade was not far behind. However, Imade wasn't interested in Bayo's warm gesture that evening. She took one look at the food pack. What is this? She asked. You've been reading all day, so I thought you might be hungry and tired. I'm tired, but I am definitely not hungry. Imade avoided Bayo's gaze. Where do you get all this money from? She asked. What money? All these. She pointed to the meal. Imade, chill out, it's chicken and chips. I didn't have to rob to a bank to buy this. What about the new car? She asked. I told you, I handle small deliveries for a courier company. The MD is very generous, and he sometimes leaves me a tip. Bayo explained. But Imade wasn't convinced. She knew Bayo was making up stories, but the motivation frightened her even more. Imade flipped the pages of her textbook, focusing on the prince, as though they were whispering strange words to her until she paused and looked up. I saw you with some guys. They are our classmates. Bayo knew she was referring to Chinedu and Austin, who stopped by earlier to pay him for handling some assignments for them. I've never seen them before, she said. Well, they are in this class. As Bayo replied, he closed up the distance between them. More than anything, he wanted to change the topic, but Imade was jumpy. Even when he slipped his arm around her shoulder, she gently removed it. What's the matter? Are you on your period? He watched her shake her head and sigh. I read the letter from the scholarship board, she said, and in that instant, Bayo eased back. You returned it in error with the books you borrowed. It's nothing to worry about, Bayo started to say. but Imadi glared at him. "They are threatening to withdraw your scholarship because of your consistent poor performance, yet you say it's nothing? Honestly, I don't even think I know you anymore because you've changed." Imadi said. "Changed?" Bayo's eyes popped. "First, it's your disappearing acts. Then these strange friends that show up from time to time. And if I didn't know any better, I could swear you are high on cheap drugs right now." "Abba! Drugs!" Bayo laughed. He painted it like a taboo, but he knew Imade was right. Ever since he started consuming hard drugs, he had become a stranger even to himself. His days were but now filled with anxiety and paranoia. He could barely fit into his clothes, and insomnia got the better of him. However, he continued to make excuses for it all the time. "Believe me, everything is under control," he assured her. "Are you sure?" "Yes." "Okay, if you say so," Imadi replied and turned to observe him. "Where are your books?" She assumed he was there to study. "Well, I'll be reading in my room this evening." Bayo stood up and, to Imadi's surprise, planted a deep kiss on her lips. It was the first time he would kiss her, and she did not resist it. By the time Austin arrived at Ilela border in Sokoto State, the sun had set below the horizon, dimming from bright yellow to a deeper gold. The driver pulled the bus to a halt at the border as the passengers filed out for an immigration check. A fierce-looking officer approached and began to cross-check their travel documents. A few passengers grumbled, but Austin was as calm as a millpond. "Where are you going, sir?" the second officer asked from behind. Austin turned to take a long, hard look at him. He looked in his early 40s with a broad face but pleasing personality. "Me?" Austin asked. "Yes. I am heading to Niger to see a friend." "Can I see your passport?" Austin handed his international passport over for scrutiny. The fierce-looking officer was busy looking through documents and interrogating a couple. "Is that your final destination?" "Officer, why all these questions? I've just told you I am traveling to see a friend." "What do you have in your bag?" Austin's heart began to pound. "Some clothes, books, and some music CDs," he replied. A few passengers who had been cleared stood aside while others strolled back to the bus. The cool atmosphere masked the odor of decomposing garbage in the nearby bushes. Tension and anticipation rose as the light in the skies blurred away. The officer with Austin's passport mumbled a few words to his fierce-looking colleague, and when they approached, they led Austin to an old, rotting wooden cabin office on the side of the road. Austin never encountered any hitch in his few months of dealing, and he was focused on the strategy for this trip. On the other hand, this was his first international trip, and he wondered if he had given himself away. The other passengers were back in the bus, and they patiently awaited his return. "Officer, I hope there's no problem," Austin asked as soon as he stepped into the cabin. "Let us know if you are in possession of anything that can implicate you," the officer without the friendly face began to say. "Anything like what?" Austin raised his brow. "I just told you that I have nothing. Why would you single me out from the bus?" The stiffness in Austin's neck proved he was irritated, and he hoped he had adopted the right psychological approach. "Empty your pockets!" the other officer ordered. "This is so embarrassing," Austin mumbled as he pulled out the contents of his pockets. His phone, wallet, and house keys. "Is this all?" "Yes." The once pleasant officer who took his passport now looked more suspicious of him. He stooped and ran his hands over Austin's body. "If we find anything incriminating, you will go to jail for a long time. Take your shoes off," he ordered. Austin obeyed. "And your socks?" Austin bent over to set his shoes aside and pulled off his socks. The officers exchanged glances. Put your shoes back on and gather your belongings. The fierce-looking officer snarled. As Austin tucked in his shirt, the fierce-looking officer moved closer. His face was a picture of unconcern except for the weird motion along his jawline, and Austin muttered a soft prayer under his breath when he handed back his passports. Austin grabbed his things and started to make his way out of the cabin, legs wobbling beneath his body. Nice shoes! The other officer's eyes were now fixed on Austin's pair of black leather shoes. Thank you. Salvatore Ferragamo? Yes, Austin nodded. Can I see it? Austin stretched his hand towards the other passengers. My boss is waiting. Let the guy go, he's been cleared. The fierce-looking officer chipped in, but his colleague refused. Is it real leather? He probed. Of course. Austin frowned at the man's interest in his shoes. As far as he was concerned, the officer was going too far, but it was advisable not to lose his cool. He watched the officer pick up his shoe and gawk at the inscription of the label. Wow! This is very expensive. Officer, my boss is waiting, Austin said. Officer Banjo was newly assigned to the border and had barely spent a week at the sensitive terrain, so several colleagues joked that he had to experience a few more incidents to enable him to sharpen his detective skills, but his intuition never failed him, and the weight of the shoe in his hand was questionable. He bent down and peeled the inner sole of Austin's shoes. Officer, what are you doing? Austin's temper sparked. Those shoes can pay your salary for a year, he said. But Officer Banjo pressed on. He peeled off the second layer, turned the shoes over, grabbed a nearby hammer and smashed the heel, almost dismantling the expensive footwear until he detected what Austin had been hiding.
Thanks for watching. This story was written by Uduak, Edet and produced by Tconcepts.